everyone. My name is Ezine, and with me is
Revocube.
and this is the Talking What podcast. In recent time, Nigerians have making a shift in the renewable energy space. But the truth is, a lot of people still know little or nothing about renewable energy. So today, before we dive into our conversation, I would like us to start at the beginning. So Mr. Alarajum, what inspired Talking What?
All right, so Talking Words was birthed out of the need to answer questions and meet the curiosity of people. Being in the renewable space for a while and being a practical user of solar systems, we get questions from customers and even non-customers, friends, families, asking several questions and asking or clarification for quotes they've gotten or bills they've gotten. And they also want to ask about the right kind of panel, the right kind of batteries, and all of those kind of conversations. And I believe we need to create a channel and a venue to communicate this. And that's why we have Talking Words.
Okay, well, I've got a lot of curiosities on what is renewable energy, how does it work? I mean, in Nigeria, how can that help us with the energy crisis? So I'm going to take another question. What is the history behind renewable energy?
All right, so renewable energy is not really new in Nigeria. A lot of persons have been consuming renewable energy decades before now. But in more recent times, because of our current realities of the cost of energy, there's now much more pronounced need for renewable energy as an alternative source of power. In some cases, as even the main source of power in a lot of businesses now. So the history is simple. From the days where a lot of people had these some water cell batteries and just come up with some solar panels, maybe just 50 watts panels and all of that, and generate some power. But over time, as a new technology, it has to evolve. It has to evolve with the realities of the maybe available growths in the industry. So one of the major concerns that people have had in renewable energy is the fact that a lot of people tried in the early years and they've been burnt and it was a bad experience. So they buy batteries and some batteries don't last more than 2 or 3 years, or they had solar systems that can only power television and just a few light bulbs and all those things. But fortunately, the industry is now way much more matured, and that's why we're discussing and now focusing on renewable energies, much more focused on solar systems. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the role? To me, I'll ask, what is the role of renewable energy in solving Nigeria electricity problem? Because, I mean, the major thing is how we can solve Nigeria electricity problem. So what exactly, why should people choose renewable energy over my normal, Yes.
All right. So Nigeria is a very interesting country and it's unique. Our problems are very interesting and we are very interesting people. I keep using the word interesting because if you study a Nigerian and its environment, it's a full case study. I think God created Nigerians with the best skills for adaptation for survival. We always adapt to solve our problems. And so let's come to renewable energy. Why should people consider renewable energy and all of that? So let me give a simple analogy. Nigeria is a country with over 220 million persons, whoever you ask. Some can say higher and lower. But just to be politically correct, I would just say
it's more.
Approximately 220 million persons, right? And from the last, I'm not certain, but I think the last recent figures from our power generation is around 9,000 or 7,000 megawatts, something like that. And in reality, to really function properly as a country and get enough power and all of those things, I think we need minimum of about maybe 100 or 120 megawatts. So the energy generation is way farther. That's energy generation from the grid is farther than the milestones we should have attained or where we should be, because energy is the backbone of industrialization, is the backbone of business growth and economic growth. Now, apart from generation, drama that we're still trying to solve, which the government is actively working every day and night. The next problem, which is now even bigger than what it can just solve in a 1 or 2 year period, is the transmission lines. These transmission lines are very old and they work rigorously because they are powering so much load than their originally designed capacity. So there are several situations where Nigeria will generate so much that we can't even transmit all of what we are generating through the transmission lines, because that will cause a breakdown. So looking at that, you should know that yes, the government is working, but it's like you have to first start your own journey. So it's similar to you. Maybe you live in an estate and you can see that, oh yes, government's already bringing in a cable to maybe supply you power or supply, let's say, a pipe-borne water is coming to your place. Yes, you can make that decide or wait, like, okay, I'll wait till this pipe enters my estate. Or you find a way to get the bowl and put the tank up and start solving your water problems. Barely the time the problem is solved if you have the resources. So that is one of the major reasons why Nigerians need to consider alternative sources of power. Our power problem, I strongly believe it will be solved. It is solved. We are on the way, but it's that gap, that time we need to really be gone. And when it is solved, by the time it's finally solved, the cost might be a challenge, because there will be several investors that poured in funds into the transmission lines, into the generating sets and whatever sources of power we're using, and those investors will need their money back. So power would not be cheap, and typically power is not cheap anywhere all over the world.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to take from there. So you made mention of those investors. You said those investors will need their money back.
Yes.
Now we're going to move on to the economic part. What are the economic benefits of renewable energy? Why, when I look at my PhD and the grid and I look back at renewable energy, why should I take renewable energy? I mean, like, economically, is it benefiting we in Nigeria?
Okay, so renewable energy is yes, I'm in a business. We supply power to a lot of commercial entities and very few individuals.
Okay.
But I would clearly say that renewable energy is not for everybody. It is, and I'm serious, it's not for everybody. Because sometimes when you weigh the commercials, you need to ask yourself some practical questions. You're not just jumping on the bandwagon. You need to ask yourself some practical questions and do the numbers properly. So the way renewable energy works, a lot of people have several misconceptions about how it works. They compare renewable energy with generators that they're already used to. And most times when I want to explain how renewable energy works, I use the generators just to explain. So I think I still have a couple of minutes, so let me just quickly take some time to explain how it works.
Okay.
So, for example, you know the I pass my neighbor generator?
Yes.
So yeah, you were born in that generation.
What you about
Yeah. So that generator is usually around 800 watts, 1 kVA. So a lot of persons are already used to that concept. Like, okay, so they know kVA in terms of generator. Oh, I started with this generator, but it can't power my refrigerator. It can't power more than how many lights. So they upgrade and all. So they start saying 3 kVA generators, 5 kVA generators. I'm talking about residential use now, right? But when somebody is talking, and that's one of the questions we get often, somebody says, oh, I got a 3 kVA bill and it's 1.5 million. And another person give me a 3 kVA bill for 12 million. This is impossible. What is wrong here and all those things?
Yes.
But so let me explain to you.
Okay.
The generating set itself is like a inverter. And what the generating set doing is converting energy from the petrol and converting to electricity. Right? And what happens when you run out of petrol? The generating set stops working. It shuts down and just goes off. Right? Now, picture that generating set as your inverter. So let's compare apples to apples. You have a 5 kV generator, and let's say you have 10 liters of petrol. On the flip side, you have a 5 kV inverter, and in quotes, let's say 10 kilowatt hours of battery. Now, if both of you, let's even compare two generators now. The same 5 kV, you have 10 liters of petrol. Another person has, no, let's flip it. You have 10 liters, I have 25 liters.
No, I want to have
I have 25 liters. we want to oppress each other as neighbors now. There's no power, right? So both of us turn on our gen at the same time. Let's say like 6 p.m. I will start running. If those generators are powering exactly similar load, right? Definitely there's a higher chance that my generator will run for longer hours than yours if the grid was not restored. And reason just being the fact that I have more petrol than you.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest mistakes people don't consider when they are investing in solar systems. So you see somebody buying a 5 kV inverter and having maybe a 2.5 kilowatt hour battery. That's maybe those gel batteries and all those things. In practical terms, it just means that if you're running on full load on the 5 kVA with 2.5 kilowatt hours, just divide it. 5,000, then 2.5, that's 2,500. It typically means that your battery can only back up for 30 minutes. Compare somebody that has a 5 kVA and has 25 kilowatt hours of battery backup. So it means that 5 kVA system might run for at least about 5 hours. And that's one of the major concepts that we need to really explain to person. And that's one of the critical reasons why we have this podcast, to explain to people and they can understand what the system is about and the right questions to ask.
Okay, so I'm learning and I hope you're learning too. And in this section, we'll be right back. Don't move. Welcome back to Talking What. This is the Q&A session. So an estate, with 16 street floodlights, a camera system, and a security port, is considering leaving the grid to completely get rid of it and moving to the renewable energy. What is your advice for them?
I suspect Udogo and Achani will on that street. All right, so what's the average cost of their power grid cost? Let me have an idea.
Okay, it's 100k.
Between 100 and 150k monthly, and they want to go upgrade.
Yeah,
the higher I had agreed. So let's just assume that each of those lights are about 300 watts. To be on the conservative side, 300 watts times 10 or 16 times 10 is already 3,000 watts. Times 16, give or take, that's about maybe 6,800, something like that. 6,800 watts of power. The CCTV camera system with MVR shouldn't be more than 400 watts. So we're looking at about 7,000 watts of power. Now, they're asking for solar system. And what was the word? Solar.
Yes.
Sun system. And they want to power this load at night. So this is where they will have a problem. To power 7,000 watts, and technically, nighttime is longer than daytime. If you look at it that way, because if someone's already starts setting from like 4 p.m.
Yes.
And so you can't really get much sunlight let's just say best from 6 p.m. till the next morning 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. That's 12, 13 hours if it's rain. So now, for this system to work properly, it means that they should first of all be able to harness a lot of power during the day with a lot of solar panels, then be able to store that power in a massive battery pack. Because to provide 7 kilowatts for 12 hours, that's 7 times 12, that's about 84 kilowatt hours. That's a lot of power storage, a whole lot. Now, that is the main problem. Because an estate, so I'm suspecting it's more like a street they're trying to power. So where is that space they want to put the solar panels? They want to attach people's face, or they will have volunteers that will say, okay, use my roof to power the streets. That is problem one. Problem two, from this description I gave you now, that amount of battery storage plus that amount of PV, if they get the best deals for maybe some of these are best vendors and the likes, they should be looking at something around 15 to 16 million naira. Now, let's weigh the numbers. If they are running away from 100k or best 150k a month, or even 100k a month times 12 months is about 1.2 million. 150k should be about maybe 1.8 or my math's not so good right now. Now, consider that kind of cost to 15 million bulk payments. Do you know the next problem they will have? Solar systems are evolving very fast. New technologies are coming in every day.
Yes.
If you can't get your money back or your value back within 3 to 5 years, I wouldn't advise you to install a solar system. If it can pay for itself within 3 to 5 years, those years we usually push for 10 years, but within 10 years, a lot of things would have evolved. So, in my own opinion, maybe professional or professional, I would just advise them to go and apologize to NEPA, say we have been proud, and maybe Odogu will calm down. But if Odogu really is on the streets, don't worry, it's not a problem. Give them our contacts, we'll install it. Yeah, so that's my response.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Words. I would like to appreciate my co-host, Olarewaju. Do well to like, comment, and share. And also, do not forget to subscribe to this channel and click on the notification button to be the first to get informed when a new episode drops. Bye.